I want to turn my attention to the open net pen fish farm transition plan. I look at it in two ways. There was the operational announcement that happened in June, where we learned that the ban is going to begin in 2029 of open net pen fish farms in BC, that there are going to be 5-year licenses where they will continue to operate. And DFO came out with their own conditions of license and regulations. And these are still primarily focused not on the protection of wild salmon. And this is very troubling to the Wild Salmon Alliance, as we've been paying very close attention to this whole initiative all the way through. And even though the documents from DFO state that this initiative is about protecting wild salmon and the environment, it falls far short in terms of conditions and license and regulation. And we all know that's where the rubber hits the road. You may recall about 2 years ago, there was an open letter from 16 scientists from across Canada to the DFO minister about the Canadian Science Advisory Secretariat sea lice report. It was scathing. We reached out and we engaged with 4 of them to develop these regulations and conditions of license with one simple direction. Please develop something that is going to primarily look at the protection of wild salmon. And that's what we have in place for your endorsement today. We can't pretend that salmon are doing well. 2009, we had a horrible year where it triggered the Cohen Commission. And then I believe it was in 2016, we had a historic low return to the Fraser. Then we had Big Bar landslide. Then we had another historic low. Then we had the Chilcotin River blockage this year, which impacted the returning fish from the Big Bar slide. We're on a downward spiral that's going to take many, many, many years to rebound. And part and parcel to that is independent First Nation monitoring and oversight. And the reason being, when the Broughton Fish Farm transition occurred, we had the Broughton Archipelago Transition Initiative, where we had the vessels, the training, the capacity, the relationship with industry, and the familiarity with the work. This is what we want to see brought in during the next 5 years. For the way I see it, it's a fund and go situation where we have a team that's ready to do the work. We just need the resourcing. But being mindful that the Broughton Archipelago Transition Initiative team will in all likelihood be in neighboring First Nations territory doing the independent monitoring and oversight, we would fully expect that host nation have their own staff to be with our team, so there is full transparency and accountability for the work. And the reason that this is being put forward is simply because one of the stated objectives of the open net pen transition planning process was rebuilding trust and transparency in DFO science and management decisions. And throughout the transition planning process, the work that I've accomplished for a number of First Nations around the province, we requested very specific science data, very specific science forms, and we did not receive them at all. This is a way to assist the federal government to move forward on that goal of trust and transparency. And for me, there is an urgency about adopting the regulations and conditions of license or the replacement of the ones that are announced by DFO. In the transition plan, quite rightfully, it states that they will review this in 2 years. So in 2 years' time, there may be an opportunity to alter the ones that don't protect salmon. Well, let's bear in mind that these licenses are only going to be operational for 5 years. And it takes 2 years essentially to have a grow out. So if we're going to revisit the licenses in 2 years, it will take time, most likely a 3rd year, and then maybe we'll have changes for the last 2 years of the 5 years. So what it does to me when I don't have the trust and transparency verified is that this is just another distraction that does not protect the wild salmon for our people across this province. And this is why we reached out and had the scientists develop something that looks after our Aboriginal rights to salmon, our food security, what looks after our territories and animals, what benefits the environment, what benefits the economy of British Columbia. It just makes great sense to do this. We can help the government be able to rebuild trust and transparency in science and decision making. Anything short of that, we're going to be status quo. There's going to be no benefit.